Part 62. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 612. After being shouted out by Gretel, Sir Harrington's face turned pale and red, then red and white. He jumped up and wanted to run away, but then he took a step, said ouch again, and sat down. What should I do? He subconsciously looked towards the door. Gretel didn't even look back. He pointed his hand and a mage's hand flew out and closed the door directly. Seeing this, Sir Harrington breathed a sigh of relief. Don't tell anyone. Don't worry, as healers, we will keep the patient's secret. Greet comforted him softly. It's just a foreign body in the bladder. The urology department sees 3 to 5 cases a week, so it's not a big deal. What doctor can be so careless as to gossip? In fact, things like this mercury thermometer are not rare foreign objects. They have no value in being collected in the department and used to popularize science among young doctors. Even if you want to publish a paper, you have to accumulate hundreds of cases and more than a dozen kinds of foreign bodies before you can write a single article. His attitude was gentle and his tone was firm, without any hint of curiosity or contempt. Seeing that the patient had calmed down a little, Gretel raised his finger to the sky, his fingertips glowing green. In the name of the God of nature, if I leak Mr. Sir's condition and cause damage to Mr. Sir's reputation, may I be despised by the God of nature and lose all my extraordinary power. Me too. Priest Donald quickly followed up, pointed to the name of the spring water goddess, and swore exactly the same. Viscount Harrington finally calmed down a little and asked tentatively. Then, how to treat it? Thank God, in this world, swearing in the name of gods is still useful. Putting aside the previous life, if the patient believed you, he would just believe you. If he didn't believe you, it would be useless to swear on anything. Gretel secretly praised the God of nature and said seriously. 2 methods. One is to cut open the lower abdomen, take out the things, and then use treatment to heal them. What? Sir Harrington jumped up, cut it open. His voice suddenly became sharp and high-pitched, even a little deformed, like a rooster whose neck had been stepped on. Cut? It sounds terrible. It's okay not to cut it. Greet still maintained a gentle smile, as if he was not attacked by the noise at all. He raised his hand slightly, raised his head with a little green fingertip, and swayed slightly. Use a vine to insert it from where the thermometer goes in and drag it out. It's very convenient to get in and out. What? Viscount Harrington's face turned pale, and he shrank back involuntarily, folding his hands to protect his lower abdomen. Let the vine stick in from that place? It sounds so scary. After 2 consecutive plans were rejected, before Gretel could say anything, Priest Donald was already a little impatient. He scratched his head depressedly and made a bird's nest out of his pale golden hair. You won't do this, you won't do that, what are you going to do? Let me tell you, the healing technique can reduce your fever, but it can't take out what you put in. Okay, these 2 plans sound a bit scary. Let him take it easy. Greet smiled to reassure Priest Donald. In his previous life, he saw countless patients cowering, screaming, and desperately resisting. In the previous life, when foreign bodies were removed from the bladder, a cystoscope was usually used. That thing, the electron microscope and mirror rod at the front end, are 7 mm in diameter and 30 cm in length. The silver light is shining, but it looks hard and cold. Seriously, the vine is much friendlier. At least the diameter of the vines can be controlled within 1 mm. It is soft and smooth, and there is no pain when inserting it in. It is sure to be accurate when pulling it out, and it will not slip out halfway. You need to clamp it once, twice, or 3 times. In fact, the thing you inserted is several times thicker than the vine. However, Sir Harrington obviously couldn't relax. He stretched out his finger, made a vague stroke on his lower abdomen, and thought about it. Then he stared at the vines on Greet's fingertips, looked at his lower abdomen, and thought about it again. After struggling for a long time, I asked tremblingly, "Can it be left alone? If it is not treated, there may be many sequelae." Gretel raised his palms. The miniature oak staff on the chest stretched out a root, rolled up the endless ink pen, and kept recording along with his words. First of all, urgent urination, frequent urination, painful urination, and hematuria will definitely not be good. Secondly, if this thing is left for a long time, the longest case I have heard of was 28 years, the urine dirt will settle on it, wrapping it up layer by layer, forming stones, which will be bigger and more difficult by then. Take it out. Again, this thing is shaking and grinding in the bladder, and it may wear a hole in the bladder. You have been informed of the above complications and signed to give up treatment. We will send you away immediately." Before he said this, Sir Harrington quickly shook his head. "I'll treat it. I'll treat it. Well, which treatment method is more convenient? Less painful? In fact, in my previous life, if it could be clipped out with a cystoscope, I would try to use a cystoscope and only make an incision as a last resort. However, this is a world with magical powers, and the medical options are different. Actually, with magic, both options are possible," Gretel patiently explained to him. "If you use vines, you don't have to cut a hole in the body. However, when the thing is dragged out, it may bump and rub in the urethra, and there will always be some damage. Of course, this kind of scratch, generally speaking, a healing technique, it will be fine. The operation of incision of the bladder is relatively simple. One cut, drag it out, and cure it. The incision is not big." He stretched out his hand to compare. It was about 3 centimeters. "That's it? Which one you choose depends on you. Then, where's the money? Use vines. The vine operation fee is 50 gold coins, the magical pain relief is 50 gold coins, and the treatment of minor injuries is 50 gold coins." Greet counted to him. "Use incision, tranquility spell 750 gold coins, surgery cost 50 gold coins, treatment of minor injuries 50 gold coins. It's up to you, anyone will do." Sir Harrington hesitated and hesitated for a long time. In the end, he still felt that being stabbed was more terrifying. Greet also followed suit and asked him to go to the operating room and take off his clothes. When it came time to adjust the posture, the patient began to struggle again. "I don't want it." He shrank on the operating table and shook his head desperately. The lead powder on his face shook off, making Greet want to do the disinfection again. "This is so shameful. Cough, the lithotomy position is like this. If I had known this, why would I insert a foreign object into the urethra in the first place and stimulate the urethral sphincter, which will easily cause the sphincter to move the foreign object inward, deeper and deeper? This thing shouldn't be inserted randomly. If not, keep your legs flat and stab your lower abdomen." "Well, you decide for yourself." Gretel began to turn the mage's hands into oval pliers. "To make a decision, you need to use tranquility. Hurry up. 3, 2, 1. I choose to cut it open. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Still feeling sleepy and feeling a little nauseous. My birthday is coming up in 3 days. I wish I could be well before my birthday. I hope I can eat big noodles and sleep on an egg on my birthday. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right?" Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 613. Do you want to cut it? In fact, Greet also prefers to use a small suprapubic incision for removal. Simple operation and high error tolerance. In case there are stones deposited on this thermometer, or there are other conditions, such as bladder inflammation, fistula, perforation, etc., it is easy to see under direct vision, and it is also easy to put a secret eye in to see. If there is something wrong, the healing technique has been wiped out, so it is safe and has no hidden dangers. Of course, there is more money carried. Carried. Is it an incision? He confirmed with the patient. Seeing the patient nodding vigorously, he turned and walked towards the corner of the operating room. Priest Donald, you prepare the patient's skin, disinfect it, and drape it, and I'll clean the hands. The range is from the lower edge of the xiphoid process on both sides to the upper third of the thigh. All hair should be cleaned. Thank you for your hard work. Okay. Leave it to me. With the sound of water rushing, Priest Donald stepped forward eagerly. Sir Harrington was leaning on the operating table, looking at him with a blade in one hand and soapy water in the other, coming over with a smile, and was suddenly shocked. What are you going to do? Skin preparation. Didn't you hear just now? Oh, skin preparation is to shave off the hair at the surgical site to facilitate disinfection. Priest Donald made a gesture on his body. This is a lower abdominal surgery, and the skin preparation range requires. He raised his hand and landed on the center of his torso, on the edge of the lowest rib, here. He raised his hand again and landed on 1/3 of his thigh, here. All the hair in this area must be shaved off. What? Sir Harrington was immediately shocked. He reflexively covered his vital parts and pulled back desperately. Then the hair here needs to be shaved too. Of course I have to shave. What are you thinking? Priest Donald gave him a surprised look. If you don't shave it off, do you want to make an incision and let the hair fall out? It will stumble when it comes out, causing you great pain? Or will it grow directly in the wound after the treatment? Well. Sir Harrington thought about the scene for a moment, and his whole body trembled. But there is one thing to say, it is still too shameful to shave off the hair on vital parts. He curled up and begged softly. Can you shave less? Can I not shave here? No. Then if I choose Vine, does it mean I don't have to shave if I choose Vine? Oh, if you choose Vines, shave them less. Gretel has finished using the cleaning technique on his hands, rubbed them once with soap, and is rubbing them a second time with alcohol. Hearing this, he turned around and interjected from afar. Just shave off the area your hand is covering. Isn't that the same? Sir Harrington screamed at the top of his lungs. Gretel's heart was as solid as stone, and she remained unmoved. That is to say, we saw less people after time travel. Before time travel, in any of their departments that required surgical operations, hundreds of people needed skin preparation every day. Wherever the doctor said, they would shave. Bargain. Non-existent. He didn't give any orders, but Priest Donald moved his hands without any hesitation. With a click of his finger, 2 soft water ribbons flew out, trapping Sir Harrington's hands. Brushing, 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 hair flying. Don't touch me here. I'm going to be hard, I'm going to be hard. Sir Harrington's screams made Gretel grateful for only one thing, the sound insulation in the operating room was quite good. Of course, no matter how good the sound insulation is, the patient's condition also needs to be considered. Although skin preparation for male patients in the Department of Urology is done by male doctors, if there are many patients, there will always be something wrong. In previous lives, most doctors would have calmly finished the meeting without changing their expressions, but now, fortunately, there is an alternative. If it doesn't work, Donald, please get out of the way and let someone else do it for him. The priest and the knight breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Then, there was a click, 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 and a dark gold skeleton walked beside the operating table and took over Priest Donald's blade. Don't worry, this skeleton was given to me by His Excellency the Immortal. It moves very dexterously and won't hurt you at all. Sir Harrington fell silent instantly. Well, if skin is prepared by a male doctor, there will be problems, and the urology department will hear about it every now and then. If you are skinned by a skeleton, Something will happen. I respect you as a man. Fortunately, routine preoperative disinfection and draping alleviated Jazz's embarrassment. Covered by a scarf, only the lower abdomen is exposed, and it doesn't feel so scary anymore. When Gretel finished brushing his hands and walked over with his hands raised, he even thought about raising his head. Is it okay to not use the tranquilizing technique? It's just a cut on the lower abdomen. Can it just relieve the pain? In fact, it is possible not to have general anesthesia. In cases such as suprapubic small incision surgery, only spinal anesthesia can be performed. The problem is that Gretel does not have the anesthetic for spinal anesthesia. He uses a puncture needle to inject the drug between the lumbar vertebrae and the subarachnoid space. The damage seems to be greater than the magic. Shall we give it a try? If you think it doesn't work, turn to the tranquility technique. Yeah. Gretel asked him to lie on his side, with his head bent down and his hands clasping his knees. Smoothly find the position of the gap between the spinous processes of waist 1-2, inhale, concentrate, and throw out a see-through invisibility. The aura of life lights up slightly in the meditation field of vision. Spinal nerve roots, sacral nerves, 12th thoracic nerve, 1st lumbar nerve. This is it. Delay the pain. The magical power moves forward, goes deep, and is controlled in a small area, covering the spinal nerve roots. Then, Gretel took matters into his own hands and pinched Sir Harrington on his lower abdomen. Does it hurt? It doesn't hurt, I can feel it, but it doesn't hurt. Spinal anesthesia successful. Yeah. He touched the patient's lower abdomen and felt that the bladder was still relatively full, so he started to make an incision. As soon as the knife went down, Sir Harrington began to urge. Are you okay? Are you okay? It can't be that fast. It has to be cut layer by layer. Gretel was quick and had just cut through the skin and subcutaneous fat. Next, the superficial fascia and linea alba are incised, the extraperitoneal fat is exposed, and the peritoneal reflection is pushed upward. Fully expose the incision and reveal the anterior wall of the bladder. Get a needle. When the needle was poked, urine gushed out, confirming that it was indeed a bladder. Cutting open the bladder, the mage's hand flew out and lifted the bladder incision. What are you dragging? Are you okay? Can you take out the things? Gretel. This is the disadvantage of local anesthesia and spinal anesthesia surgeries. Patients can talk, make demands, and sometimes even quarrel with you. Correspondingly, doctors cannot tell jokes on stage. I really want an anesthesiologist to be at the scene. I really want the anesthesiologist to hold a mask and slap it directly on his face. Dallin, take a breath. But the surgery still had to go ahead. Enter the secret eye and fly around to observe the location, size, and shape of the foreign body in the bladder, whether it is accompanied by stones, and whether there are lesions in the bladder mucosa. Another mage's hands turned into the shape of oval forceps, and under the guidance of the secret eye, they found the foreign object and took it out along the bladder incision. Under the guidance of the secret eye, the treatment technique goes around inside to ensure that everything that needs to be treated is cured, and is rinsed repeatedly with normal saline. Heal the incision layer by layer. All right. Untying delaying pain, Sir Harrington jumped up and groped up and down. After confirming that he was safe and sound, he made a reasonable yet unexpected request to Gretel. Does the natural god religion have a magical method of hair growth? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 614. Of course there is no magic for hair growth. Even if there were, Gretel wouldn't. Of course, this does not prevent the completion of the operation from reaching 100%, nor does it prevent Gretel from easily earning 850 gold coins. This is the key point. Although when Sir Harrington left, he looked at Gretel with an extremely sad look, which reminded Gretel of a shaved dog. Greet shrugged and continued to go into the laboratory to fight the blood test magic. 1 day, 2 days, not even a clue. On the 3rd day of work, Pastor Joanna excitedly informed him. We have negotiated with several almshouses in Nevis and the midwives employed by the almshouses. The day after tomorrow is the day when the first class will be held to train and standardize midwives. That's really good news. Greet murmured. There are 3 almshouses in Nevis. 2 years ago, the number of poor people accommodated was more than 2,000 and less than 3,000. The number of poor people receiving out-of-hospital relief, that is, receiving regular cash and in-kind relief, is about 40,000. Medical services are also purchased with money from the City Hall as part of the relief provided to the poor. This included hiring midwives to deliver babies, and they were paid the average price of a poor birth, 1 silver coin for each service rendered. There were not many midwives who accepted this offer, only about 10 of them. At this moment, Joanna got through to the poorhouse and gathered them all. Before Gretel entered the classroom, she heard them chatting and joking in rough voices. From time to time, he slapped his thigh, and his harsh laughter could be heard through the door. Let me tell you, I delivered a woman that day. She was very beautiful and looked like a girl from a nice family. But guess what, she didn't have a wedding ring. That kind of woman. She made a disdainful snort through her nose, as if to emphasize how chaste and pious she was. It's better to be dead. Gretel pushed the door open silently and went in. In an instant, the entire classroom fell silent. The old woman who spoke hurriedly put the wine bottle into her pocket. In her panic, the cork of the wine bottle was knocked to the ground, and she quickly bent down to pick it up. With a pop sound, the green glass wine bottle fell to the ground, and the aroma of wine overflowed. Gretel pretended not to see anything. He stood on the podium and his eyes slowly passed over their grey hair under their dark headscarves, their slightly stooped bodies, and their cuffs and skirts. The old blood stains could not be washed away. Well, the health situation is worrying. Joanna followed him in. The young female pastor stood on the edge of the podium, pointed at Greet, and raised her voice. This is Mage Nordmark, a 6th-level magician, a 6th-level nature god priest, and the owner of the Oak Grove Medical Clinic. Stand up. The midwife stood up unevenly and bowed or curtsied. He was slurring his words, muttering things like "I've met the mage" and "salute to the priest." Although he was saluting, the look in Greet's eyes was mixed with fear, doubt, and contempt, as if to say, "What did this man bring us here for? Is this man going to deliver a baby? This man wants to teach us how to deliver mothers." Greet pretended not to hear. He raised his right hand, pressed it down slightly, and said in a calm voice, "Perhaps you don't know who I am. I am the owner of this medical clinic. I am the inventor of cowpox, which was rolled out across the city some time ago and everyone must be vaccinated. It is I who initiated and promoted the vaccination of the whole city. The supply of clean drinking water in the city and the construction of public toilets throughout the city." Visible to the naked eye, the midwife's eyes changed from fear to shock, from shock to admiration. Each of them had personally experienced those events that shocked the whole city, and they had discussed who the promoters were. It turns out that this is the person in front of me. I am not telling you how high my status is when I say these words. Greet glanced at all of them and continued to speak calmly. But I want to tell you that I have always had deep concern for the sick, the weak, and the poor. And pregnant women are also a part of the medical system that needs to be taken care of, and you are the people who most directly care for pregnant women. So, I asked you to come, train you. His tone suddenly turned harsh. In addition, I also say these words to let you know that I have considerable influence in the city hall. If anyone can't learn well, and doesn't follow what I teach, I can easily do it and let him. The workhouse won't hire you. This threat is straightforward, realistic, and easy to understand. The midwives sitting under the podium immediately started making a noise. What can we do if we can't learn? I don't even know how to read, how can I learn this? Pastor, you must not be unreasonable. My poor little Lila, I have given birth to 13 children in my life, and 11 have died. Only this granddaughter is with me. If I am fired, how will she survive? We argued, and cried, almost running out on the spot, slapping the ground and crying. There were about 10 people, making a noise that was as loud as that of more than 20 people. Even the little snake poked its head out from the oak staff and stared at the scene with its tongue hanging out. Greet wanted to hold up her forehead, but she couldn't lose her momentum. Instead, Joanna stepped forward and slammed the table with a loud bang. Shut up. I don't know you yet. How many words do you know, how much do you know, and how do you work on a daily basis? Others don't know, but we, the priests, don't know yet. She stared menacingly at the women below, and the flame patterns on her cheeks were so bright that they almost flew out of her body. With a loud shout, the midwives all shut up. My sister is mighty. Greet silently gave her a thumbs up. Joanna didn't look at him. She looked down with pressure and continued to yell. I won't let you fail to understand or learn what I'm teaching you, but don't even think about cheating. Now, stand up and do the simplest thing first. Roll up your sleeves rolled up above your elbows, wash your hands. Turn on the tap. Pick up the soap. 7-step hand washing method. If possible, brush your hands 3 times. The clothes worn during delivery and all delivery equipment used must be sterilized. This alone can make the maternal infant mortality rate plummet. In the 19th century, Dr. Semmelweis, the father of hand hygiene, used this rule to reduce the maternal mortality rate from 12% to 1%. Researchers at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, the world's #1 school of public health, report that neonatal mortality rates in rural Nepal dropped by 44% just because birth attendants washed their hands. As much as %. Yes, wash your hands. Just wash your hands. I wash my hands before delivering the baby, when I touch the mother, and when I touch the baby. If you can't do this well, don't do this job. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Jia-Lan 2020. Chapter 615. Chapter 614 Male Obstetrics and Gynecology. Dr. Greet Nordmark. The midwives who were gathered at the hospital soon discovered that although the pastor had a harsh word, he was still gentle and gentle. Don't hit them, don't even scold them with unpleasant words. They can't hear a word of the dirty words they are accustomed to. Even if they are illiterate, cannot read books, and cannot remember pictures, they can forget most of what was said yesterday. After checking the progress, the pastor would just smile helplessly, shake his head and sigh. Oh, let's say it again, come on, if you wash your hands, you need to wash them above your elbows, about a palm's length away from the elbow socket. When you deliver babies, you occasionally put your forearms in, right? After teaching them how to wash their hands, they also talked about the structure of the pelvis and uterus, and how the fetus is wrapped layer by layer in the mother's womb. Talk about the circumstances under which a pregnant woman can give birth naturally, and the circumstances under which she needs help from magic to have a chance of survival. For example, the pelvis is narrow and the child's head cannot come down at all. Or the fetus is in a transverse position, or the umbilical cord prolapses before the child comes out. When he said something, the midwives below nodded. The things Greet said are in line with their experience. They witnessed the bleeding and death with their own eyes during their long delivery work. That's right. Especially when the mother is young and has not yet grown up, at least 5 out of 10 children will die. There are also those who eat too well and have babies that are too big. When I was young, I delivered a pregnant woman from a wealthy family. She was so fat that the flesh on her face was piled up. What happened? The baby couldn't be born alive. Suffocated to death in mother's womb. Yes, you can put your hand in and turn the child around in the breech position. It's really difficult to do it in the transverse position. 3 out of 10 will die in the breech position, but not one in the transverse position will survive. Master Priest, do you think that in this situation, if the mother's stomach is cut open, can she really survive? Can both of them survive? Gretel knew that telling the truth was not as good as letting them see it with their own eyes. Fortunately, the second stage of midwife training is to open a special obstetrics and gynecology ward so that midwives can deliver babies to pregnant women under supervision and guidance. I'm coming. This one is going to give birth. Get ready. Change clothes, wash hands, take out equipment. Joanna rushed back and forth in the delivery room, shouting and yelling, ordering the midwives to follow the trained plan. The target audience covered by these midwives is not broad, but it is by no means narrow. Each of them has to deliver 100 to 200 babies every year. It is not difficult to find pregnant women who are willing to be admitted to the hospital. There are clean houses with plastered walls. There are bedding sheets that are washed, boiled, and changed every day. There are foods for pregnant and postpartum women. There is divine support in critical situations. Best of all, it's free. Accommodation, food, magic, everything is free. There are many homeless people who are willing to queue up for free accommodation and food, not to mention safe delivery and supportive magic. As soon as the midwives spread the word, Greet's obstetrics and gynecology ward was instantly filled with people. Greet's team even had to work hard to screen for pregnant women who were close to giving birth to prevent the hospital from being overwhelmed. However, just the day after the admission of pregnant women was released, all the planners, organizers, providers of funds, and the owner of Oak Grove Hospital, Master Gret Nordmark, encountered great trouble. Around, left and right, opposite. Outside the obstetrics building, men in ragged clothes and women with sallow faces and skinny faces, perhaps the husbands, mother-in-laws, sisters, or other relatives of the mother-in-law, stood in a dense circle, staring at him eagerly. What are you looking at me doing? Could it be that I wanted to go in because I wanted to peek into the patient's privacy and satisfy my own ulterior desires? Well, it's undeniable that such bitches do exist. But I really am not. Now that I'm here, I can also serve as a healer. I can even do more than them. Mage Nordmark. Come in quickly. Pastor Joanna's hair was messy and her face was red from being busy. She poked her head out of the obstetrics building. These mothers, please see if they need surgery. Gretel responded and stepped forward quickly. However, the road in front of him immediately narrowed again and was almost blocked. Gretel, where are the security guards? Bernard. Call 10 security guards over. Clear the place. For a time, the men roared, the women cried, and the chickens and dogs jumped. Greet walked quickly inside, thinking fiercely in his heart as he walked. If you stop me outside again, all the family members accompanying the baby will be kicked out of the hospital. In my hospital, no one is allowed to accompany the childbirth. Stepping into the obstetrics building, it wasn't much better. When I pushed the door open and entered the delivery room, I was greeted by a scream. Amen. Screams came and went. Greet was guided by Pastor Joanna, lifted the curtain, and walked to a woman who was in the most critical condition. Unexpectedly, the mother looked like she was dying. When she saw Gretel, she still had the energy to wave her arms. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Get out. With a snap, the palm of his hand hit Gretel on the face. Thanks to the mage armor, It didn't cause a tragedy. Well. Question, the mother strongly resists the doctor's approach, but no other doctor can take over. What should be done at this time? It seems to be against medical ethics to force the examination against the will of the mother. It seems to be against medical ethics to leave it alone and let her suffer or die as she pleases. Don't be afraid, I'm here to help you, I won't do anything bad to you. Gretel leaned over and tried to persuade. However, the woman kept screaming and resisting, and it seemed that she was completely. Greet gritted his teeth and made a decision that went against medical ethics. He threw a charming human at the opponent. However, I don't know whether it's because his skill is too low or because the opponent is strongly resisting. Charming humans will not be effective. In short, the situation has not improved at all. Gretel sighed in distress. Hypnosis. No, if it hurts like this, hypnosis will have no effect. Dark magic. Keeping her invisible does not solve the problem. During the diagnosis and treatment process, I cannot remain silent. Directly use the tranquility technique. The tranquilizing technique will affect the work of voluntary muscles and interfere with the mother's exertion during childbirth. Moreover, the difference between the tranquilizing technique and general anesthesia is that it does not make the subject lose consciousness, and she still knows that there is a man beside her. Should I discuss with the necromancers and pretend to be a female doctor? Others are trapping skeletons, but I am trapping myself. It's very good. The more I fool around, the more I go back. Carry her into the operating room. Directly use hypnosis and tranquility to walk. Hurry. Let's do an anesthesia first and then think about anything else. This is a long-term project to persuade pregnant women and their families to accept male doctors. Before that, it seems that the process of the obstetric hospital needs to be optimized. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 616. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 dash. Gretel had never seen Lin smile like this. He leaned forward and backward, beat his chest and stamped his feet, opened his mouth as wide as possible, and showed his little tongue to him unscrupulously. Brother Lin, you have changed. The old brother Lin N, who was aloof, cool, had explosive fighting prowess, and could leapfrog and kill him if he disagreed with him. Smiling like this really made him want to take a photo and write a line next to it. We are strictly trained not to laugh no matter how funny it is. Master Lin N laughed heartily for a while and finally stopped. He took a deep breath, looked at Gretel up and down, and sighed deeply. Your life is so comfortable. Where? Gretel protested. Every day I spent time either in the hospital or in the laboratory, with screams in my ears and the smell of blood lingering in my nose. Medical dog during the day, chemistry dog at night. This kind of day is called comfortable? Master Lin An leaned on the sofa, smiled narrowly at him, and suddenly closed his eyes slightly. When I opened my eyes again, my whole person began to deform like a flowing flow from top to bottom. Her hair lengthened, her cheeks became fuller, and her eyes became deeper and brighter. She has snow-white skin, rosy lips, and a curvy figure. Brother Lin, you. Why did you disagree and become a woman? This is even better than the cross-dressing boss. Stupid. Have you even forgotten disguise skill? Disguise, a first-level magic spell in the illusion system, belongs to the same level and series as Silent Phantom, which Gretel is so familiar with. The comment on this magic in the spell book collected by Thunderhorn is: as long as a magician has some brains, it can help you do many things beyond your ability. Of course, don't forget to add the magic of phantom sound. In fact, these three spells, disguise, phantom sound, and invisibility, are called the three treasures of disguise for magicians. Many magicians working outside can make full use of these three magics. Disguise yourself, escape from danger, and even kill powerful opponents. For low-level magicians, when there is no powerful killing magic, these magics are more useful than fighting and killing. Of course, it is limited to magicians who have been outside for a long time, have keen observation skills, and are familiar with the world. It is not recommended to use it if you are not good at it, as it can easily kill you. Lin En, who has been adventuring outside for many years, has used this magic to kill more than one member of the glorious Holy See, often jumping over the top to kill him. Therefore, he would sincerely lament Gretel's life was so good. A mage who has never survived the bloody storm and is immersed in research every day is so lucky. Gretel has learned this magic, but only once. Under Lin's guidance, he tried once, twice, 3 times. The effect was disastrous. Why can't you use it well? Master Lin En was puzzled. You obviously use Silent Phantom so skillfully. Forget it, Gretel clenched his fist and waved it, giving up the idea. Ignore the disguise. Originally we shouldn't have disguised in the first place. I'll go talk to them. Originally, in the previous life, there was no pretense. Communicating well in advance and ensuring the informed consent of the patient and the patient's family is the right path forward. Joanna. Spread the word. The pregnant women admitted in this batch will talk to me one by one, and those who do not accept the treatment of male doctors will be separated. Starting from the next batch, we will not accept those who do not accept treatment by male doctors. My own hospital. I pay for the patient's food, drink, and accommodation myself. I decide what patients to admit. It has a mouth at the top and broken legs at the bottom. Gretel gave an order. Pastor Joanna brought a group of midwives and a group of nurses, gathered the mothers and their families, and went to talk with each family. Do you accept treatment from a male while ensuring the presence of a female healer? In situations where the mother's life may be in danger, should a man receive medical treatment? Is it acceptable for male therapists to touch the private parts of pregnant women solely for medical purposes? Whether. Pastor Joanna's mouth went dry while talking, and she kept applying healing techniques to her throat. God knows, a pregnant woman and 3 or 4 family members each have their own ideas and concerns. While talking, they can have a quarrel first. They admitted 30 pregnant women. 30 people, 30 families. Gretel's request is that all the talks be completed before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. God knows, the spellcaster needs sleep. How could she finish the conversation before falling asleep? Each family will only be given 10 minutes, she ordered the midwives angrily. Anyone who can't make a decision within 10 minutes will be treated as a disagreement. When the time comes, let it be your fate. Don't blame others if you die. They are not willing to use the best healers, so they deserve it. After roaring, he patted his head and ran towards the mage tower. There is another problem waiting for Gretel to make a decision. Mage Nordmark, what if they regret it? Get them to sign. They can't read. Greet continued to rub her temples. It doesn't matter if you are illiterate. If you can't sign, you can press your thumbprint. However, if a person is illiterate, he can claim, I don't know what is on this piece of paper. I pressed it when they asked me to. A magical contract? Blank magic contract, long-term sale of the White Tower, 1 gold coin per piece. Talking under a surveillance camera? Recording and video recording for easy access at any time. The magic in this world can do it, as long as there is a tower spirit to support it, but Gretel does not have a second mage tower in the hospital, nor a second tower spirit to help record the video. Ask the mother's neighbors or relatives to help testify. Greet, are your demands on yourself too high? Master Lin En looked on coldly, watching him pull out his hair, and finally couldn't stand it anymore. You are a 6th level mage. You are a disciple of the Lord of Thunder. Even if you kill 2 of those poor people, the council will not give you any trouble, not to mention you are saving them. Regret. Deny the debt? Be rude. Let them go. Well. Gretel weighed it up, and found out that in terms of identity, he was a 6th level mage. Although he was not politically correct, in this world, he was indeed one of the best among men. In terms of force value, my hospital employs a large number of barbarian security guards. Their martial virtues are sufficient and they can crush any medical trouble at any time. When it comes to defense, I have a mage armor on me at all times, even the lowest level mage armor cannot be scratched by civilians. Then, just let them press their fingerprints and that's it. What do you think? That's your medical clinic. Gretel sighed sadly. He curled up in the chair, curled up again, and finally curled up into a posture similar to GEU's lying down. Then let's do it. Anyway, I'm not afraid of them making trouble. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 617. With the informed consent work streamlined, subsequent diagnosis and treatment will indeed be much more convenient. Greet was able to sit firmly on the Diaotai, visit the mothers one by one, and teach the midwives one by one. By listening to the fetal heartbeat, you can roughly determine the fetal position. Don't have a stethoscope? You can use a wooden tube, a copper tube, or even a blowtorch. A hollow tube can hear you more clearly than sticking it directly. The fetal heart beats more than 160 times per minute, or less than 120 times. It is abnormal. I don't know what a minute is. No pocket watch, no watch. Well, this is indeed a problem. Today's watches have always been luxury goods. The cheapest pocket watch on the market, an egg-shaped one that can barely be held in one hand, starts at 100 gold coins. No one can afford it except magicians, nobles, and businessmen. With Greet's financial resources, he could not afford to equip these midwives with pocket watches. Even if it can be afforded, there will be no benefit except an increase in robbery and murder cases. Well, you can use your own pulse to estimate. In desperation, he could only give an alternative plan. It is abnormal if your pulse is less than twice or more than 3 times. Provide education, popularize examinations, respond to emergencies, and guide cesarean sections. Fortunately, only 30 women were admitted at one time, and only a handful met the indications for cesarean section. Even so, Gretel was very busy. Take in fewer people next time. He came out of the operating room and leaned against the wall to wipe his sweat. Tell those midwives that next time, there will only be one spot for each person. Joanna forced a smile at him. This female pastor took on the vast majority of the workload and was several times busier than Greet. She was too tired to speak at the moment. After delivering the baby, the work is only half done. Next, I have to write medical records, write operation records, and maybe draw anatomical diagrams, prepare to collect information and publish papers, and if possible, help Gretel write a book. Her hair was soaked and stuck to her forehead, and the hand-washing clothes she wore were all soaked with sweat. It seems that they are almost the same as the images of doctors in previous lives. After closing her eyes and resting for a long time, Joanna turned in, took the child out, took her to the ward, and placed her next to her mother's pillow. By the way, I checked a circle of pregnant women who had given birth safely and determined that 3 of them were ready for discharge. Who is responsible for these 3? Inform their families and take them back. At the command, the midwives stumbled out to call for help. Soon, 3 groups of people came outside Oak Grove Hospital. The first group was the manager of the workhouse, a middle-aged gentleman with a prominent chest and belly. His white shirt stuck out from his frayed tuxedo. Behind him, a fat middle-aged woman followed step by step, driving two dark and thin old women. The fat woman quickly walked in, picked up the child with her own hands, and bowed to the middle-aged gentleman. Then he shouted to two old women. "Hold the person up. Hold him up and take him away. How can he be so ignorant and cause trouble to Master Mage? Oh, Master Mage, thank you for your hard work." Greet nodded slightly with a straight face. Pastor Joanna scolded from the side. "Bring a car next time. Look at her like this, does she look like she can walk?" "Yes, yes. Yes, yes. I must bring a car next time." The middle-aged gentleman did not refute, but bowed repeatedly. Gretel watched them walk out of the hospital door and sighed slightly. The person survived, but the future of the mother and child in the workhouse can only be imagined. The weak mother could not even sit on a cart. There will be no carriage for the next woman to give birth. However, the husband who came to picked her up without hesitation and did not let her go to the ground. As he walked, he tried to turn his head sideways and asked cautiously, "Does it hurt to carry you like this? Do you want to come over and hug me?" "It doesn't hurt, it's okay, don't be too tired, I can come down and walk." "No, look at your pale face, you'd better lie down." "Can I lift you up a little? This way you don't have to use any strength when you hold my neck." Thanks to Master Mage, I saved a silver coin this time. I'll cook you something delicious when I go back. Do you want to eat fish or a chicken drumstick?" "No, it's not easy for you to make money, I can eat enough these days, which is already good. You can buy 2 more loaves to eat." The couple were leaning cheek to cheek, whispering. Next to her husband, there was a half-year-old little girl who looked like their eldest daughter. She was holding her younger sister's baby clothes and walking beside her. She looked up at her parents with eyes full of attachment and smiles. Gretel stood on the steps and watched them go away, and smiled unconsciously. Not long after he finished laughing, he turned to the third family, and his mood suddenly turned bad again. The third family is considered the one with the best conditions. At the very least, they have a truck to pick them up. The mother was half lying in the car, hugging her baby with a cowering face, enduring her husband's furious curses like a storm. "Why did you give birth to a loser again? A useless thing. I spent 5 silver coins to marry you. I provided you with food and drink, but I couldn't even give birth to a son. I bought a chicken and it can still lay eggs." Gretel really wanted to tell him that whether a boy or a girl is determined by the DNA of the sperm has nothing to do with the egg. Thinking about it, he smiled bitterly, "I don't even know where the DNA is, so what can I tell you about it?" The only thing he could do was to raise his voice and call Bernard. "Kick them out? My wife works so hard to give birth to a child. She doesn't even say a word of sympathy. She only knows how to curse people, beasts. They've dirty my land. Kick them out. Don't let this man come in next time." With an order, 2 barbarian security guards stepped forward, one of them lifted one end of the cart and carried it directly out of the hospital gate. The third one opened his big palm, grabbed the man's shoulder, carried him out of the hospital like a chicken, and swung him out. "Get out. Master Mage said that you are not allowed to come in the future." Suppressed by absolute force, the husband did not dare to say a word, picked up the cart and walked away in despair. Greet sighed and turned to the obstetrics building. "Who are these people? What a terrible thing." He walked through the outpatient building, turned a big bend along the wall, and walked towards the obstetrics building. Before entering the door, there was a sudden scream outside the wall. Painful, weak, fearful. I didn't. What happened?" Gretel listened. The woman's scream seemed a bit familiar, mixed with the man's roar. The voice was angry and low, but despite the volume, I couldn't hear it clearly. Greet looked up at the high wall, sighed, cast a flying spell on himself, and soared into the sky. Standing in the air, looking down, I saw the man who had just pulled the mother away, grabbing her shoulders and shaking her with all his strength. Tell me. Have you ever been touched by a man? Tell the truth. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. The author's birthday is today. The author wishes you a happy birthday, meow. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 618. Greet was flying in mid-air, and when he heard these words, he was stunned for a moment, and he almost couldn't control the flying skill. He clenched, shook, and pumped his fists. His fists were itching, and he wanted to throw a fireball at him on the spot. This is of course impossible. Not to mention that fireball is a ranged killing magic and cannot be thrown around for no reason. Even if it is a single target magic, he will not kill people just for a word. Although, MD. I really want to beat that man up. Calm down, with the level of civilization in this place, you can't expect too much. Even in the previous life, 20 years have passed since the 21st century. There are still people asking on the internet platform, my wife was delivered by a male doctor and I feel very uncomfortable. What should I do? Gretel took a deep breath, exhaled deeply, and flew straight over using the flying technique. He threw himself a loudspeaker, condescendingly shouted angrily. What nonsense are you talking about? The man shrank, looked up and saw Gretel, his face suddenly turned pale, and he knelt down. He didn't dare to raise his head, his forehead was low in the mud, and he spoke incoherently. Forgive me, Master Mage, forgive me, Master Mage, I didn't mean to slander Master Mage. The voice became softer and softer, mumbling, and it was difficult to hear what was being said. After saying a few words, seeing that Gretel had no intention of responding, he straightened up and slapped his face one after another. I told you to talk nonsense. I told you to talk nonsense. I told you. He didn't dare to get up or even stop until Greet opened his mouth. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong is nothing more than this. In a short time, people from the hospital also rushed out. Bernard took the lead and rushed over with 2 security guards. He grabbed a few nearby passers-by who were watching the fun and asked a few questions. He immediately became furious. Boss. Just say one thing and I'll beat him to death. Don't want. The woman screams. She was half lying on the cart, holding her baby tightly, with fear in her eyes. She looked up at Gretel, then at her husband, buried her cheek in the swaddling clothes, and curled up tightly into a ball. Gretel looked down at everything below quietly, feeling empty in his heart, not even feeling anger, disgust, or pity. Of course he could beat that man, but what next? Wouldn't that husband take revenge on the mother? Wouldn't you get angry at her, abuse and beat her, or even the least serious thing, ignore her and not take care of her? A mother who has just given birth for 3 days will die if she has no one to take care of her or support her. He landed with a long sigh, looked at this and that, and waved for Bernard to follow. Several people walked back slowly until they entered the hospital gate. The sound of the wheels behind them started to sound one after another. Everyone was in a very low mood. Gretel lowered his head, said nothing, and shuffled slowly. Bernard followed with 2 security guards, muttering and cursing. Who are these people? Cowards. Beasts. Ungrateful. Even dogs can't eat it? Save his woman's life, help deliver his child, and even help him get revenge. Boss, this kind of person, I'm going to kill you, we won't be cured this time. Gretel shook his head, not wanting to speak. He drooped his head and walked forward step by step. When he reached the door of the obstetrics building, he took a deep breath and raised his hand to wipe his face. Don't think about this anymore. Bernard, I will continue to go in and work, and I'll leave it to you outside. Okay, boss. Bernard stopped, saluted, turned, and left with the two security guards. Just as he raised his feet, his whole body suddenly froze. He stood still and listened. Suddenly, he bowed his body and rushed out like an arrow. Follow up. Save people. The two barbarian security guards followed immediately without asking any questions. The three of them ran quickly, accelerated, rushed towards the courtyard wall, jumped up, put their hands on the wall, and climbed over one after another. Gretel was left alone in front of the building, confused. What's the situation? I really don't want to do flying again. With this magical power, I might as well save it for surgery. He looked left and right, then used amplification technique on himself, and whistled longly. Appa! Come here. In the wilderness outside the backyard, a long hissing sound sounded in the distance. With the sound of hoofbeats, the silver moon deer galloped over and stopped in front of the steps. Gretel grabbed its long antlers and climbed onto the deer's back, patting its neck gently. Appa! Let's go outside the wall and take a look to see what happened. Silver moon deer snorted to show that he heard it. Then, turn, retreat, aim at the courtyard wall, take a run. Ah! Easily, jump over. Only Greet leaned back, almost falling down and sliding down the deer's back. He only managed to avoid trouble by tying the antlers with vines. After a startled jump, Gretel came to his senses and was already outside the courtyard wall. Silver moon deer carried him forward following the sound, and soon, the mother and her husband from before appeared in front of Greet again. But this time, the situation in Gretel's eyes was much worse than when he walked away. The woman's face was bruised, her hair was messy, and her right eye was so swollen that she could hardly open it. The body was covered with dust and dirt, as if it had rolled in a circle on the ground. Only the swaddling clothes on the whole body were clean. It seemed that it had been tightly protected by the mother. Not far away from her, a man was being held by a barbarian security guard with his arms clasped behind his back. He could only drag his toes on the floor. In front of the savages, he did not dare to curse anymore, but glared at the pregnant woman fiercely. With every glare, the mother-in-law couldn't help but wince and squeeze herself tighter. Did you hit her? Gretel gestured to the barbarian to let go of the man and asked softly. The man trembled, and seeing that Gretel had no intention of taking action, he quickly bowed his waist deeply and sneered. Master Mage, what did you say? How can this be considered a beating? She talked back to me, so I just slapped her twice. She just gave birth to a baby, how can she beat her? Greet frowned. The man chuckled and did not dare to speak. The mother next to her had her head lowered and suddenly sobbed. I really didn't. No, there's nothing better. What's wrong? The man yelled half a sentence in a rough voice. He glanced at Greet and immediately stopped talking. The mother suddenly raised her head. He just doesn't believe me. He told me that Master has never touched me, but he never believed it. From the time I married him to now, he has been beating me, whenever I don't like it, even when I'm drunk. Why did I spend 5 for silver coins? The work I did when I was married is 10 times more than that. You! The man shouted loudly, but was stopped by the barbarian warrior and immediately stopped. The mother-in-law had picked up the swaddling clothes regardless, jumped forward, and knelt down in front of Gretel. Mr. Master! Hire me! Please hire me! I see there are many women in the medical center. I can do laundry, wash sheets, and carry patients. I can do anything. Please hire me. If you don't want me, I will be beaten to death by him. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks for everyone's tips. Thank you everyone for your birthday wishes. Meow 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 meow. Thanks to @origami and Gart for the 1,500 starting coins. Thanks to @Yamengbing for the reward of 1,349 starting coins. Thanks @itsGU's reward of 500 starting coins. Thanks to @Mupeju, @Lizai, @Leaphair R9800, @Zishaikiu, @Minicat, @Yuwings for the 100 starting coins reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Jiolan 2020. Chapter 619. Greet lowered his head to look at her. He was in his teens, definitely less than 20 years old, with some traces of immaturity still remaining on his thin and bruised face. In the previous life, such a girl should still be studying on campus, with a bright smile and high spirits. Instead of having disheveled hair and ragged clothes, holding her baby clothes and falling at his feet, begging hard to avoid domestic violence and to get rid of a certain man. He jumped off the deer's back and made a sign, and the two savages immediately came forward, helped her up as gently as possible, as gently as a savage could do, and put her on the cart to sit down. Greet took 2 steps forward and said in a low voice, "What about your child?" "I'll take her. I'll take her. I can feed her. Master Mage, don't worry, I can feed her and I won't delay my work. I promise I won't delay at all." The 2 barbarians had to hold her shoulders down one at a time to prevent her from falling to the ground again. The mother's husband let out a suppressed roar. Greet continued to ask the woman without looking at him. "I mean, do you have other children?" "No. Just this one." The woman seemed to see hope, her voice became louder, and her bruised right eye also shone with light. Gretel nodded. "Do you have a place to stay? Can I live in the medical center? I promise not to go out, not even a step, not even my daughter." Smart people. Living in a medical center, there is sufficient security, and the wind and rain cannot blow you away. Of course, your husband who is a domestic abuser is even less protected. Gretel secretly praised her, and at the same time, he pretended to be stern and darkened his face. "You need to rest for a while first, and then you can start working again. Let me explain first, all food and lodging, examinations and treatments must be paid for. You are not allowed to leave until you have paid off your debts, understand?" "I understand. I understand," the woman nodded happily. Gretel waved to her. "Come with me." He turned and walked towards the hospital door. Behind him, the man whined and roared dully, but he never dared to come up and stop him in the slightest. For this incident, Greet lamented that anti-feudal propaganda has a long way to go and once again revised the system for accepting patients. Try to choose those families who are clear-minded and know how to care about their wives. Let the mother-in-law be treated better, so that everyone will not have to work hard for a long time, and then the mother will be discharged from the hospital and be tortured to death by her husband and in-laws. If you don't want your wife's life, I still need to make a return visit to the hospital to track the success rate. While teaching Joanna about cesarean section, she also guided the midwives, wrote medical records, and revised the summary lesson plan. In addition, we must improve the hospital's various systems and pay attention to the hospital's revenue and expenditure. Just after a little balance, once the obstetrics and gynecology building was built, there was another big hole in an instant. Where to fill in this expense? The hospital director is really not a human being. When you are a junior doctor, you only need to think about how to cure the patient in front of you. At most, you have to think about the cost issue, so as not to overrun the cost and the medical insurance bureau will not recognize it and eventually charge it to yourself. When you become a director, you have to manage all aspects of the entire department vertically. Laterally, you have to communicate well with all brother departments. especially in a department like the emergency department, where emergency consultations and referrals are made daily. Without the cooperation of other departments, it would be fatal. As a dean, in addition to clinical practice, you must be aware of the entire hospital's infrastructure, equipment, finances, and logistics. What are the medical department, nursing department, security department, finance department, equipment department, information department, science and education department? Why do I feel like I did it all by myself? I need someone to help me. Greed held his head and wailed. After howling twice, Priest Donald came in again and took him to receive the guests. Mage Nordmark. I'm Cohen Jensen, from the Department of Control. I heard, you deliver babies here. The person who came here looked familiar. I had probably seen him somewhere, but I had never spoken to him before. Wearing a light purple mage's robe, the material is blended with silver threads, and the silver light shines in his every move. With that color and style, even if he goes to the catwalk, he is probably the most handsome guy. He's also a good-looking person. White teeth and red lips, smiling before saying a word. When I saw a beautiful nurse walking by outside the door, I turned my eyes and my charm naturally flowed out. Can you take me to see it? If appropriate, my sister wants to come here for the next life. Well, this maniacal gentleman and the beautiful nurse in the outpatient building are basically skeletons. You don't have to shoot them anytime and anywhere like this. Regardless of his charm, his needs are real. The proportion of female magicians in the enchantment and control department is indeed the highest among the 8 categories. By the way, the lowest level is Black Crow Swamp. So far, Gretel has seen less than 1/10 of the total number of female necromancers. As for whether there is a spouse and whether there is a need for reproduction, it is difficult to look at the overall style of Black Crow Swamp. Gretel stood up and shook his hand, while asking curiously, Mr. Jensen, why did you want to come to my place? Your sister, who was the female magician who took care of their births in the past. Hey, how could any spellcaster come to help me before? The visitor wanted to sigh when he said this. There are 3 sects in Nevis. The natural god sect is always running around and can't find anyone. The god of war temple has no such job. The spring water temple claims to take care of women and children, but however, the relationship between the spring temple and the magic council is also the worst. It's not hatred, but maintaining a kind of reserved indifference, trying to maintain the politeness of being a king when he doesn't see the king all the year round. In this case, the magicians are not at ease if the safety of the mother is left in their hands. Besides, among the priests who believe in the goddess of spring water, 70% are men and 30% are women. The vast majority of women remain unmarried and devoted to chastity. If you want them to come and deliver the mother, you might as well just hire a midwife. At any rate, I have experienced it a lot and gained a lot of experience, but if I really don't feel at ease, I can just ask a healer to stay outside the curtain and throw away healing spells blindly. But we still have a medical branch, Gretel expressed surprise. The medical branch of the conjuration system has neither too many nor too few people. Generally speaking, magicians who take care of the entire Nevis can still do it. Invite them over. Among the magicians in the medical branch, there are only a few women, and even fewer have given birth to children. They can't be ranked. The visitor wanted to cry. Besides, it is said that you will cut open the stomach and take out the child. That's it, the case was solved. With Gretel's understanding of the medical branch, they are more inclined to study spells and develop various magic potions. What? Operation. Come on, that's the job of the necromancer next door. Only those guys are willing to make a bloody mess. It's not that there are no alternatives, but there are few. Specifically speaking of female medical mage, and then specifically speaking of female medical mage who has a history of childbirth and is willing to deliver babies, they are even rarer. To understand this, Greet did not take him to see the ward. Instead, he asked him to sit down and took out the medical record book. So far, the maternity ward has received more than 50 pregnant women, including 30 cases of vaginal delivery, 8 cases of cesarean section, and the rest are still waiting for delivery. All mothers and babies are safe. Master Jensen's eyes became brighter and brighter as he looked at it. Those who were not strong enough to give birth, those who were born horizontally, those who were born in the breech position, those whose umbilical cord was wrapped around their necks, all of them were able to give birth safely. Even healing can't do it. When treatment encounters this kind of situation, apart from giving the mother some physical strength, she can only resign herself to fate. Moreover, the demand for healing skills is too great. According to the medical mage he asked, the physical demands during childbirth are simply a black hole of magic. Please take me to see it. As long as the conditions are right, my sister will be born here. Gretel took him to see it. When they walked into the obstetrics building, the nurse pushed a trolley and carried a large wooden basin past them. The smell of blood mixed with the stench immediately hit their nostrils. Master Jensen frowned on the spot. Is there no cleaning technique here? Does it always smell so bad? Sorry, no, there is disinfectant water available. I use disinfectant water to mop the floor once a day, but it can't stop the various smells that are hard to describe. Master Jensen took a few steps forward and pushed open a ward. In the ward, 3 beds were arranged side by side, with a woman lying on each bed, 2 holding swaddling clothes, and the other with a bulging belly, moaning softly. Master Jensen frowned again. Is there a private room? Sorry, our place is small and we can't build so many rooms. Master Jensen stopped talking and looked around with a straight face. The more he looked, the tighter his brows became. The walls were bare and pale, apparently smoothed with the recently popular cement and then coated with a layer of lime. The quilt and sheets were made of coarse cloth and looked quite old. There were large areas of light brown stains on them, and the blood stains had not been washed away. There are no carpets, no smooth and flat wooden floors, only rough cement floors. He exited the ward and walked forward. When we reached the end of the corridor, screams could be heard in the delivery room. At least 5 or 6 women were giving birth. This doesn't have a separate delivery room. Gretel stared into his eyes and shook his head regretfully. Sorry, you have also seen that we are here to serve poor pregnant women. We need to provide food and accommodation, pay the healers, and every penny has to be spent wisely. The conditions really cannot be better. Master Jensen frowned tightly, lowered his head, and turned around 3 times with his hands behind his back. The conditions for his sister to give birth here were unbearable. If he did not allow his sister to give birth here, the previous cases in which both mother and child were safe strongly tempted him. Can't you really provide better conditions? Really, can't you? Why don't we have a ward ourselves? A delivery room? Before Greet could agree, he began to shake his head again. No, the walls are so thin, the sound is so noisy, and the ventilation is so poor, having a ward is not going to solve the problem at all. Gretel looked into his eyes, pursed her lips, and refused to speak. Do you think the obstetrics conditions in public hospitals are too poor? Do you want a good level of medical security and a good rest for the mother? Private room. Go to the VIP building next door. It really doesn't work. Is there still room for the medical center? Can our family build a building by ourselves? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It was my birthday yesterday. I was so happy to get 48 monthly tickets. Comparatively speaking, the 119 recommended tickets were a bit unsafe. Give me your recommendation vote too. Give it to me too. Anyway, you don't need any money, just give me a little. Thanks to @RidingPigTiger for the 5,000 starting coin reward. Thanks to @Conguliaxing123321 for the reward of 1,500 starting coins. Thanks to @Reader2020171936204251313037 for the reward of 666 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 620. Of course there is a place. When Gretel was building a hospital, His Excellency the Immortal took care of it personally. Legend intervened, and what Gretel wanted was wasteland. Naturally, the city hall made the decision with its eyes closed. Spread out the map, circle the quill, and get as many as you want. Not to mention building 2 small buildings. Even if Gretel wanted to build the largest hospital in the universe, there would probably be enough space. Of course, you have to build a building. Build tall buildings. And Greet doesn't have that much money. According to his vision, the land should be leveled, the foundation should be laid, the water, electricity and ventilation below should be connected, rats and insects should be expelled, all the work should be done well, and then a few buildings should be built solidly. Sorry, the fiscal budget will immediately show a huge deficit. So Oak Grove Hospital now only has 3 buildings. 1 outpatient building and 1 research building. 1 obstetrics building is very small, smaller than the other 2 buildings. It is just a row of bungalows with less than 20 rooms. Gretel took Master Jensen to the back of the research building. He raised his hand and pointed, and there were large areas of wasteland. Well, the ground has been leveled. Oh, my security guards train here every day, and they probably smash the ground, Greet replied without changing his expression. By the way, Appa also likes to run around here. Master Jensen was silent for a moment, copied Greet's hospital construction plan and went back, calculating left and right for his own needs. It needs to be clean, it needs to be comfortable, and it needs to not wrong my sister. Constant temperature is definitely a must. Constant humidity is best. Ventilation is a must, pest control and rodent control are a must, but a mouse can't escape and scare my sister. There should be a waiting area for midwives, a nursery, and a wet nurse's lounge nearby. If you decide to have surgery, it's best to have an operating room next door. The construction cost is nothing. Add the enchanting costs 1 by 1, and 2 or 3,000 gold coins are simply not worth it. Moreover, after the house is built and used once, it is thrown away in the hospital, which is equivalent to giving it to Gretel for free. His brother-in-law is only a 5th-level mage. It's not that he can't afford the money, but he really feels distressed. After a round of discussion with her mother-in-law's family, Master Jensen came to Greet again. If we don't build a house, can we build a simple one? The simple solution is to have family accompany you during the birth. They are all mages of level 5 or above, and the shelter hut can be used easily. When one expires, another one will be replaced. The wind cannot blow and the rain cannot hit. Okay. Greet smiled and agreed. He was a little disappointed that he didn't get the rich man's wool, but he didn't show it. Once this is done, there will be another one. If there are many wealthy customers, we will eventually be able to find them. If it doesn't work, if you make too much money, you can build it yourself. He looked directly at Master Jensen, and the smile on his lips never faded at all. By the way, let me explain in advance. Who do you choose as my sister's attending doctor? Who can choose? The midwives and female priests usually take care of the maternal examination and treatment. If they can't make up their minds, I will also take part if necessary. Should my sister and her family be cared for by the female priest throughout the whole process, or should I be the one to take care of them? Are you the best healer? Yes, I am the best, Gretel answered without hesitation. Master Jensen immediately stood up, put his right hand on his chest, and bowed deeply. Then, when the time comes, please do not hesitate to take action. My sister's safety is up to you. Gretel rolled his eyes and laughed heartily. The sorceress's delivery went very smoothly. I was admitted to the hospital on the first day, completed the examination in the morning of the second day, and had surgery in the afternoon. He stayed in the hospital for 3 days for observation, and on the fourth day he was able to go home, lie on the bed holding the child and chatting with his girlfriend. It doesn't hurt at all. Use 2 magical techniques, close your eyes and open them, and the child will come out. Look, there is no damage at all. What? It doesn't hurt at all? So good. The person who came to see her was her classmate, who was under the same tutor and was 2 years older than her. When I gave birth to the baby, I also hired a healer, but it still hurt all day and all night. The healers said that you can't use pain relief magic, otherwise the baby won't be born. They only lost the healing technique. What's the use of the healing technique? In addition to giving people more strength, it still hurts when it should, but it hurts her to death. Oak Grove Medical Clinic doesn't need it. It is said that they cut open the stomach and took out the baby directly, so they can use magic to relieve pain. The mother happily hugged the baby. Not only does it not hurt, but it is also much safer. I heard from them that my baby was lying with his feet down in the belly. It would have been difficult to give birth. If I just gave him a knife, there would be no danger at all. Is it really that good? How much does it cost? Prenatal fetal position check is 100 gold coins, heartbeat monitoring in the surgery center is 50 gold coins, blood pressure monitoring is 50 gold coins, blood oxygen monitoring is 50 gold coins. Master Jensen's sister smiled and counted one by one with her fingers. Preoperative blood test costs 100 gold coins, pain relief magic 750 gold coins, hypnosis 50 gold coins, surgery fee 750 gold coins, post-operative examination and care 100 gold coins. They said there was not much bleeding during the operation and no blood transfusion was needed. Otherwise, every transfusion would cost one person. Blood, plus 100 gold coins. That's only 2,000 gold coins, the female magician calculated and sighed. 2,000 gold coins can be exchanged for you to have a safe and painless delivery. It's a great deal. When I gave birth to my child, I was in pain for a day and a night, and I was dying, so I gave the therapist 2,000. If you don't spend money at this time, when will you spend it? The next day, 2 more female magicians came to Oak Grove Medical Clinic. One is accompanied by her husband and the other by her female companion. After going around in a circle, the exact same question came up. Are there better conditions? No. So, is it convenient for you to go to the clinic? Sorry, Greet replied dryly. He faced the female magician's eyes, which ranged from anticipation to disappointment, and pointed to the side. You see, there are many pregnant women here. One visit, at least half a day, can save several more people. If you are in need, Oak Grove Medical Research Institute is always looking forward to your visit. Woo! Several female magicians withdrew with great regret. After that, the 2 chose different plans. A relative with her father, husband, and mother-in-law accompanied her throughout the birth. The family members provide spell cabins, spell cleaning, and spell care, while Oak Grove Hospital is only responsible for medical support. Another spent 100 gold coins and secured the right to use a ward for 3 days, as well as priority in queuing for a cesarean section. They can be checked at any time, and if there is no problem after the check, as long as no pregnant women are undergoing surgery or need urgent surgery, they can be pulled up for dissection. Of course, the costs associated with examinations and surgeries are still inevitable. You can live in a single room in the ward, or you can bring your own bedding. But the air always smells bad, and when I'm awake or asleep, there are always painful screams lingering in my ears. The whole experience was a bit uncomfortable. Even so, it is much more comfortable than working desperately to have a child. This amount of money may be a huge sum for a low-level mage. A level 1 or level 2 magician would be considered to be living a good life if he could earn 100 gold coins a year. However, as long as the mid-level mage is not too extravagant and wasteful, he can always get it. The news quickly spread among the magicians, especially the female magicians. Within 2 days, another magician accompanied his wife and came to the door anxiously. Can you let my wife live with you first and give birth to children if you can? If you can't give birth, do an autopsy. This is too much money. I am a teaching assistant at Bridge Magic Academy and a level 2 magician. I can, after signing the contract, if I really have to spend money, I will borrow the money and pay. Okay, without Gretel having to intervene personally, Priest Donald, who was in charge of the reception, gushed. Hospitalization fee is 1 gold coin per day, including food and drinks, and is under the care of a midwife, fetal position examination, blood test, a total of 200 gold coins, which must be paid first. If you need to have an autopsy in the end, you have to pay, or sign this dash. He pushed over a contract. The surgery fee can be waived, but you must agree to be the subject of teaching, so that other therapists can learn from the pregnant women. And you must be the subject of data collection for the paper. Of course, your name and other private information will be withheld. The couple looked at each other. The husband was a little hesitant. Are you going to let those people try their hands on you? Otherwise, I'd better borrow dash. Before he finished speaking, his wife grabbed the contract and raised her hand. The magic light flashed and the secret mark fell, which meant that the magic contract was established. The young wife struggled all day and night under the care of the midwife, but finally she could not hold on and had a cesarean section. I gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. I lost a lot of blood after delivery and received a transfusion of 800 units of whole blood. Because the cesarean section fee was waived, the total expenditure was 405 gold coins. It's much more expensive than hiring a midwife privately. It's actually a lot cheaper than having a cesarean section or giving birth in a temple or a medical magician's clinic. And the best thing is the peace of mind, knowing that if something is wrong, it can be converted to a cesarean section at any time. Oak Grove Hospital made a modest profit and added wizard cases that could be written into papers. The whole process can be described as a win-win situation and everyone is happy. Only Greed was a little unhappy. He counted the gold coins he had received, then counted them again, and sighed in annoyance. When will we be able to save enough for another building? These magicians are so stingy. One by one, they are unwilling to invest in building a house, and would rather several people take turns opening shelter huts. You can't necessarily let him borrow money from Sarah, right? Although Sarah is currently working at the top of the Tower of Babel and seems quite happy, according to her, the gold coins under her belly are almost enough to cover half a bed. Still have to find a way to recruit a wealthy person. The rich man came soon. The third batch of poor pregnant women were sent home after giving birth. On the day the fourth batch of pregnant women were admitted to the hospital, a carriage stopped at the entrance of Oak Grove Hospital. A young swordsman jumped out of the carriage, with handsome appearance and straight waist. Is Master Nordmark here? On the order of the Earl of Argyll, the head of the family, I would like to invite the Master to come to your home to diagnose and treat the female members of the Earl's family. Well, can I say I'm not free? It can be said that the patient has just arrived and I can't leave. Can you please come to the door? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thank you for taking away the 1,500 starting coins from Sheng Sheng. Thanks to @Littlefot55 for the 100 starting coins. Pi a new book. Wanja competition simulator, Hoyi shoots the sun at the beginning. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 621. Gretel dealt with the Earl of Argyll. This is one of the most powerful lords in the local area. He is deeply rooted and has strong personal force. He is a level 15 knight. He has a strong body and a loud voice. When he strides over, the mountains shake and the earth shakes, just like a bear. Gretel met him at the same meeting to promote cowpox. The Earl walked in so aggressively that he shouted angrily, and the heavy long table was about to be overturned by him. In fact, it was a good intention, and he came to warn them that someone was doing something secretly. But with that look, people who didn't know it would really think that he would beat Gretel up. This person's face must be given, and this favor must be received. Greet got into the carriage, and Bernard followed behind on Appa, meandering away. The silver moon deer was very dissatisfied when it failed to wait for Greet to ride, and nudged him several times with its nose. The carriage rumbled into the mansion. Gretel quickly walked up to the second floor following the leading knight, and stepped into a large room. He saw the Earl of Argyll standing there, his thick eyebrows furrowed. The whole person's aura was quite gloomy, as if shrouded in an invisible cloud. The room was divided into inside and outside by a curtain. There were shadowy figures moving inside, and a woman's clear voice spoke softly. There were healers sitting around on the sofa outside. Greet glanced at them casually. Okay, basically they are all acquaintances. The temple of the god of war, the temple of the god of nature, and the temple of the goddess of spring, all priests from the three sects were present, plus 2 medical magicians. The golden threads on the chest, cuffs, and belts flashed, and it was obvious at a glance that the leader was at least level 10 or above. This level is even more luxurious than the lineup of the Viscount's family last time, the family of the child with congenital anal atresia. To this extent, it seems that the female concubine of the Earl's family is really in trouble. Gretel secretly speculated and walked towards Earl of Argyll. The Count had strode over, shook hands with him briefly, and nodded solemnly. My daughter lost her husband 2 months ago and returned to her parents' home to recuperate. These days, her condition is getting worse and worse, so I can only ask you to come and take a look. Please save her, preferably, you can save her child at the same time. After saying this, he raised his hand, and a servant girl immediately turned around, curtsied to Gretel, and led him towards the curtain. Passing by the sofa area on the way, 7 or 8 healers were whispering to each other and discussing non-stop. I feel something is wrong. The life breath in her body is very weak, she does not look like a strong child. Maybe it's just that the mother's body is weak. I feel something dark, am I cursed? This, curse or something, I don't understand. This is not a situation I can handle. Greet nodded to them and followed the servant woman behind the curtain, seeing a pregnant woman in her 20s lying on the bed. His face was pale and swollen, and his palms exposed outside the quilt were white and transparent, and the blood vessels on the back of his hands could be easily seen. Accompanying her was a priestess from the Spring Water Temple, holding her hand and speaking softly, constantly comforting her. White light would rise from the fingertips from time to time, and stars would fall on the pregnant woman's body. Every time it fell, the pregnant woman's complexion would get slightly better. Greet frowned slightly. Divine magic has immediate effects, but it can really damage your vitality. According to Greet's understanding, this is probably caused by promoting the body's metabolism, promoting rapid healing, and consuming a large amount of nutrients. The patient is already weak, but he keeps pouring magical magic on her. Isn't this drinking poison to quench her thirst? He followed the maid to the bed and sat down. He looked kindly and spoke softly. Hello, madam, I am Pastor Greet Nordmark. I was invited by your father to treat you. How many months are you pregnant now? Do you feel uncomfortable? Caroline Argyle Wormet, the pregnant woman on the bed, replied angrily. He paused for a moment, gasped twice, closed his eyes again to relax for a while, struggled and nodded to the priestess beside him. Say. Ms. Caroline is 5 months pregnant. Priestess shook her hand and whispered. She has been in poor health since she lost her husband 2 months ago and has been grieving excessively. The fetus is often unstable, and it has become more serious recently. She has been bedridden for half a month. In the 5th month of pregnancy, the fetus was unstable and she stayed in bed for a long time. Greet briefly thought about it in his heart. Can you lift the quilt and let me see her belly? Isn't this inconvenient? Can't you feel her breath of life? I really can't feel it. Gretel was the weakest in this aspect, so much so that Elder Irwin once joked that even a piece of wood was better than him. The wood could still feel the sun, rain, and dew. He shook his head slightly. In that case, would you please stretch your arm, ma'am, and let me measure your blood pressure? The blood pressure is 140/88 and the heart rate is 77, which is still within the normal range. But neither the priestess nor the pregnant woman refused to do the next examination. Gretel had to turn around and take out a stethoscope. In this case, I will turn my back to her and not look at anything. Please put this disc on her lower abdomen, around her navel, and move it slowly. I will tell you to stop, is that okay? Priestess reluctantly agreed. Gretel turned his back to the bed, closed his eyes, and concentrated on listening. Soon he frowned. Ma'am, did you put the disc in the right place? Of course. Priestess answered without hesitation. Gretel turned his back to her and shook his head. No, what I heard was bowel sounds, and they were very clear and normal bowel sounds. With this lady's weakness, the bowel sounds shouldn't be like this. Do you want to test me? So you put it on yourself. From an angle that he couldn't see, Priestess silently raised her thumb and gestured to the pregnant woman. He's really quite capable. The stethoscope chest piece was picked up and put down. This time, it was finally in the right place. Gretel closed her eyes and directed Priestess to place the stethoscope around the pregnant woman's navel, move it slowly, and listen carefully. The fetal heart rate is very weak, 5 months pregnant. The fetal heart rate shouldn't be like this. Can you let me touch my belly? I can cover my eyes, but my hands must touch the skin directly. No. No. Lady Caroline yelled vehemently. After screaming a few times, his face turned pale, and he bent down to vomit again. The priestess quickly stroked her chest and patted her back, while the servants carried copper basins, poured hot water, and took towels, making a mess. Miss, don't get excited. Miss. Get out. Miss is bleeding. Gretel was pushed directly outside the curtain. With his back to the curtain, he silently speculated. It has been 5 months. The mother is weak, still vomiting and bleeding. It is very difficult to save the child. I will have to find a way to do a B ultrasound later. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of